The stars stretched like scattered diamonds across the endless black sky, but Lieutenant James Carter barely noticed them. His mind was entirely on the distress call that had brought the human starship Aurora to the distant Arathia system. The message had been desperate, filled with fear and pleading. An entire planet, rich, vibrant, full of life, was on the brink of collapse, caught in a war it could not win. And humans, known for their stubborn courage, were being asked to help. When James first stepped onto the planet, he was struck by the beauty of it. Towering crystal trees shimmered under a pale twin-moon sky, and rivers glowed faintly with a silver light. But the beauty was marred by smoke rising from distant cities and the sound of distant alarms echoing through the air. Amidst this chaos, standing tall on the balcony of a palace carved from the living rock itself, was the Princess of Arathia, Lumina. She was breathtaking. Her silver hair fell like liquid starlight over her shoulders, and her eyes, deep and luminous, seemed to hold the weight of centuries. There was a quiet strength in her stance, but also a fragility, a silent plea for help that no words could fully express. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost a whisper, yet it carried across the air and reached him directly. "Human," she said. Her lips trembled, and James noticed a hint of fear mixed with curiosity. "I've never seen one of your kind before." James knelt instinctively, bowing slightly out of respect. "I am Lieutenant James Carter of Earth. I'm here to help Princess Lumina. Tell me what you need." Her gaze lingered on him, searching as if trying to measure not just his words but his very soul. "I don't need soldiers," she admitted. "I need hope, my people. They are losing faith. They believe the Empire is too strong, that nothing can save them." James felt a pang in his chest. He knew the feeling. Humans often faced impossible odds, and yet somehow they endured. "Hope is something we never give up on," he said gently. "If your people will fight, we will stand with you. Together we can turn the tide." She nodded slowly, as if considering his words for the first time. "You speak as if you know my people," she murmured, almost to herself. "But you are a stranger, a human from another world." "I know what it means to fight for others," James replied. "To protect people you care about, even when the risk is greater than the chance of success. That is something every human learns." Lumina's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, almost imperceptible, but it lit her face like the first rays of dawn. You are different," she whispered. "Even among your people, perhaps few would dare come here." James met her gaze steadily. Sometimes difference is what saves lives. Sometimes it's what changes the world. For a long moment, the two of them stood in silence, separated by the balcony railing but connected by an unspoken understanding. Around them, the planet's crisis loomed like a storm on the horizon. But in that quiet instant, it felt as if the universe itself had paused. Lumina tilted her head slightly, her silver hair catching the glow of the twin moons. "If only," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "If only someone like you could stay here, not just as a savior, but as more." James's heart thumped, not from fear or adrenaline, but from something he could not yet name. He had trained for war, for danger, for impossible missions across the stars. But nothing had prepared him for the pull he felt toward this alien princess, standing so gracefully yet so vulnerably before him. "I will do everything I can to save your people," he said quietly, not knowing that his words were already carving a place in her heart. "Whatever it takes," Lumina nodded, her eyes glistening. "Then perhaps hope is not lost yet." Above them, the stars continued to burn, silent witnesses to the beginning of something neither had expected, a bond that would shape the fate of a planet, and the lives of two beings from entirely different worlds. Days turned into nights, and nights into days, but for Lieutenant James Carter, time felt different on Arathia. The planet was alive with urgency and danger, yet amidst the chaos he found moments of unexpected calm when he was near Princess Lumina. Together they walked through her city's devastated streets, coordinating relief efforts and training the Arathian citizens in defensive strategies. James was amazed at her courage. She moved among her people with grace and determination, yet he could see the invisible weight of responsibility pressing upon her shoulders. One evening, after a long day of planning and preparation, Lumina invited James to the palace gardens. The garden was unlike anything he had seen before. Bioluminescent flowers swayed gently in the alien breeze, casting a soft glow that painted the two of them in delicate light. Streams of water, clear as crystal, trickled over stones that shimmered faintly under the twin moons. It was peaceful here, a small sanctuary amidst the chaos. Lumina moved beside him, her hand brushing his accidentally, or perhaps intentionally. He felt a shiver run down his spine. "You work tirelessly," she said softly, watching him adjust the schematics of the city's defenses. "I have seen many leaders, many warriors, but you, human, you carry something different, something I cannot name." James smiled, trying to hide the flutter in his chest. "I'm just doing what I must. Every human learns that. We fight when we have to, even when the odds are against us. That is what we are." Her eyes met his, shining like twin stars. "Your people. You do not fear the impossible. You fight even when the universe itself seems to turn against you. How do you do it?" James hesitated, then said quietly, "Because giving up is not an option. Because protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That is what makes life worth living. It is what defines us." Lumina nodded slowly, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, almost shyly, she lowered her gaze. "I have lived my entire life in this palace, surrounded by walls of gold and duty. I have known strategy, loyalty, and expectation. But never a heart like yours." James felt his own heart race. There was something about the way she looked at him, something fragile yet profound. "I don't know what the future holds," he admitted. "But I do know that if we work together, we can save your people. And maybe we can even change the way your world sees hope." For a long moment they stood in silence, listening to the soft rustle of the glowing leaves and the gentle gurgle of the crystal streams. Lumina's hand brushed his again, this time intentionally. He did not pull away. The connection between them was quiet but undeniable, like an invisible thread stretching across the stars. She sighed softly, a sound full of longing. "Human, there is something I must tell you." Her voice trembled slightly, though her posture remained regal. If only I could marry someone like you. Someone brave, someone kind, someone from a world so different yet so strong." James's throat tightened. The words, soft and fragile, seemed to echo in the air around them. He wanted to respond, to tell her that he felt the same pull, the same impossible longing, but he knew the barriers between their worlds, customs, politics, duty. Even the most powerful human could not ignore the consequences. He only said, "Lumina, your heart is stronger than most I have ever met. Whatever happens, I will stand by you. Always." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for the first time James saw the girl behind the princess, the one who wanted to live, to love, to feel free. And in that moment he realized that their bond had already begun to change them both, not just as warrior and princess, but as two souls who had found each other in the most unlikely of places. Around them, Arathia's twin moons shone brighter than ever, as if the universe itself was acknowledging the fragile, powerful connection between human and alien, a connection that would shape the fate of both their worlds in ways they could not yet imagine. The horizon glowed red as the enemy fleet descended upon Arathia. Massive ships, dark and cold, blotted out the stars, their weapons charging like lightning ready to strike. Alarm sirens echoed through the cities, blending with the distant cries of panic-stricken citizens. Lieutenant James Carter stood on the deck of the Aurora, gripping the console, his jaw tight with determination. Princess Lumina arrived beside him, her silver hair catching the flickering lights of the control room. She was composed, regal as ever, but James could see the worry in her eyes. Her people were counting on her, and now on him. "They are stronger than we expected," she said quietly, almost to herself. "How can we possibly win?" James placed a reassuring hand on hers. "We fight smart, not just strong. I've trained humans for wars far worse than this. Arathia is lucky to have courage on its side. That counts for more than you think." Her eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment the fear in them softened. I trust you, human. Just don't fail us." He nodded, a silent promise passing between them. Then with a deep breath he turned back to the battlefield. The first wave of enemy fighters descended upon Arathian cities. Explosions painted the skies in streaks of orange and silver. James piloted his fighter with precision, teaching Arathian pilots in real time, guiding them to exploit weaknesses the enemy did not expect. Despite their unfamiliarity with human tactics, they adapted quickly, fueled by his calm confidence and the hope he carried with him. On the ground, Lumina coordinated the defense. She moved among her people, directing civilians to safety, rallying soldiers, and inspiring courage with every word. Her voice, though soft, carried authority that resonated even above the chaos. From the observation deck of the palace, she watched as James led the counterattack. His fighter danced through enemy fire, making impossible maneuvers, each one precise, fearless, and deliberate. Her heart pounded in her chest, not from fear for herself, but for him. Every time he narrowly dodged a blast, she held her breath. Every time he fired, every time he saved an Arathian pilot or destroyed an enemy ship, she felt a surge of pride and something deeper she did not fully understand. The battle raged for hours, and though Arathia's forces were outnumbered, James's guidance turned the tide. Enemy ships faltered, their formations broken, their confidence shaken. And when the last of the dark vessels retreated, the planet's twin moon shone down on a battered but victorious Arathia. James landed his fighter near the palace, his uniform scorched and torn, his body exhausted. Yet when he stepped out, the first thing he saw was Lumina running toward him, her silver hair flowing, tears streaming down her face. She threw herself into his arms, holding him tightly as if she could anchor herself to his strength. You saved us," she whispered, her voice trembling. "All of us. You saved my people, my planet." James held her gently, his hands firm yet tender. "We saved each other," he said quietly. "Your courage gave me the strength to fight. Your people gave me hope. That's what makes the impossible possible." For a moment, the chaos of war seemed to vanish. Only the quiet hum of victory surrounded them, and the bond between them deepened. Lumina rested her forehead against his chest, her small hands clutching his uniform as if never wanting to let go. But James knew their journey was far from over. This battle was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, the threats many, and their worlds were still separated by more than just distance. Yet in this moment, with the battle won and the stars shining above them, both human and princess realized something undeniable. Together, they could face anything, and as they stood there holding on to hope, the seed of something far greater than alliance or duty began to grow, a connection not bound by planets or politics but by courage, trust, and the first flicker of a love that would challenge the very stars themselves. The night after the battle, Arathia was quiet for the first time in weeks. Smoke had cleared, alarms were silenced, and the cities, though scarred, were alive with cautious hope. Lieutenant James Carter walked through the palace gardens with Princess Lumina, the soft glow of the bioluminescent flowers painting their faces in gentle light. The war had left them both exhausted, but there was an unspoken need to be near each other, a need neither fully understood nor wanted to ignore. Lumina stopped by a small fountain, watching the water shimmer in the moonlight. "James," she began softly, her voice trembling slightly. "There is something I have kept inside for a long time, something I cannot say to anyone else." James looked at her, noticing the unusual vulnerability in her posture. "You can tell me anything," he said gently. "I promise I will listen." She hesitated, her silver hair falling over her shoulder, catching the moonlight like starlight in motion. "I've lived my whole life in this palace, surrounded by expectations, by rules, by the weight of my people. I've never been free to make my own choices. Except now. Except with you." James felt his heart tighten. He had seen her as a leader, a princess, a figure of courage and authority. But here, away from the chaos of war, she was simply Lumina. Just a woman longing to be seen, longing to feel more than the duty imposed upon her. I don't understand why, but being near you feels different," she continued. "You make me feel hope not just for my people, but for myself. I feel alive in ways I have never known." James stepped closer, the words he had been holding back rising to his throat. "I feel it too," he admitted, his voice quiet yet firm. "Being with you, seeing your courage, your heart, it changes me. It makes me want to be better. Not just as a soldier, but as a person." Lumina's eyes glistened with emotion, reflecting the glowing flowers around them. "If only I could marry you, human," she whispered so softly that it seemed like the wind had carried her words. "If only our worlds were not so different. If only we could be together freely without fear or expectation." James's chest ached. He wanted to tell her that he felt the same, that the galaxy itself could not keep them apart, but reality pressed down like gravity. Political boundaries, alien traditions, and the distance between Earth and Arathia were walls he could not break. Not yet. He took her hand gently, holding it as though he could anchor her through the uncertainty. Lumina. Even if we cannot be together the way we wish, nothing can erase what we feel. What we have, it exists and it is real. That is more than most people ever know in a lifetime. Her lips trembled and tears welled in her eyes. You always speak with such certainty, she whispered. Even when the world around us is broken, you never doubt yourself or me. James shook his head. I do doubt. Every day. But courage is not the absence of doubt. Courage is choosing to act even when fear and doubt are all around you. That is what makes your people strong and what makes you extraordinary. Lumina let out a shaky breath and leaned closer, resting her forehead lightly against his chest. In that simple gesture, so much passed between them, trust, longing, and a silent promise of what could be, if only the stars aligned. For a long time they stayed that way, surrounded by glowing flowers and quiet water, the galaxy itself seeming to hold its breath. Though words could not bridge the worlds between them, the unspoken connection was stronger than any distance, any rule, any war. And in that moment, both human and princess understood something profound. Even in a universe filled with conflict and impossibility, hearts could find one another, and hope could exist in the smallest gestures, in the simplest truths, and in the courage to care when the world seemed determined to keep them apart. The calm that had settled over Arathia was fragile. A delicate thread stretched across the tension-filled air. Lieutenant James Carter sensed it even before Princess Lumina received the warning. An Arathian official, pale and trembling, arrived at the palace late one evening clutching a sealed message. His eyes flickered nervously between Lumina and James as if afraid of what the words might reveal. Your Highness, the official began, his voice shaky. There is a plot. Someone within our council has betrayed you. They plan to use your trust in the human to destroy you during the peace ceremony. Lumina's heart froze. The peace ceremony, a gathering meant to signal the end of conflict with the neighboring empire, was in just 2 days. To think that someone in her own court could betray her shook her more than any enemy fleet ever could. James stepped forward, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the fear around them. Show me the message, he said, taking it from the trembling official. He scanned the contents quickly, his trained eyes reading between the lines, noting the subtle signs of planning and coordination. The betrayal was real and the danger immediate. Lumina's hands shook as she looked at him. How did this happen? I trusted them. Her voice was barely a whisper, filled with disbelief and hurt. James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Trust is a gift, Princess. Sometimes it is abused, but we will not fail. Not now, not ever. We fight smart and we fight together. Over the next 2 days, they devised a careful plan. James worked tirelessly with the palace guards, using human tactics that the council would not anticipate. Lumina, in turn, directed her advisors and loyal soldiers, planting subtle misinformation and preparing contingencies. Every move had to be precise, every step flawless. The tension was suffocating, yet in that pressure their bond strengthened. They moved in tandem, their trust in each other absolute. Finally, the day of the ceremony arrived. The palace was adorned with banners of peace glowing softly under the twin moons. Dignitaries from neighboring systems filled the halls, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. James remained near Lumina at all times, his sharp gaze scanning the crowd, ready to act at a moment's notice. Then, chaos erupted. A hidden contingent of traitors lunged from the crowd, weapons drawn, aiming for the princess. James reacted instantly, his reflexes honed by countless battles. He dove in front of Lumina, deflecting a blade with the butt of his rifle. In seconds, the palace erupted into a controlled frenzy, guards subduing attackers, James coordinating counterattacks, and Lumina directing her people with courage and authority that left even the enemy stunned. In the aftermath, the last of the traitors lay restrained, their plans thwarted. James stood beside Lumina, both of them breathing heavily, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Her silver hair was tangled, her dress torn slightly, but her eyes shone brighter than ever. You saved me again, she whispered, her voice trembling between relief and something deeper. Admiration, gratitude, and a spark of something she could not name. James shook his head, brushing a stray lock of her hair from her face. I didn't save you alone. You saved yourself too. Your courage, your leadership, it inspired everyone. That's why we survived. Lumina's eyes glistened with tears. She reached up, touching his cheek gently, her hand warm against his skin. I don't know how to thank you. I have trusted so few, and yet you've risked everything for me. For us. James looked at her, his heart tight with emotion he could hardly contain. It's what we do for those who matter. I would risk everything again, Princess, and I will if I have to. As they stood together amid the aftermath of betrayal and chaos, a silent understanding passed between them. The galaxy was filled with enemies, plots, and impossible odds. But together, human and princess had faced danger and emerged stronger. And in that unspoken bond, they found something neither had expected. Not just hope, but the beginnings of a love powerful enough to challenge even the stars themselves. The victory over the traitors had brought peace to Arathia, but the weight of reality pressed heavily upon Lieutenant James Carter. His mission was complete. The humans had helped Arathia survive, guided its people through impossible odds, and left a mark that would never be forgotten. Yet now the time had come to leave. Princess Lumina met him on the balcony of her palace. That evening, the twin moons casting a soft silver glow over the city. The streets below were quiet, the citizens safe, but the silence felt heavier than the roar of battle ever had. Lumina held a small, glowing crystal in her hands, one James had given her during their earliest days together. It pulsed gently, a symbol of connection, of trust, of something far deeper than either could express in words. James approached slowly, unsure of how to speak. Every step was weighted with unspoken emotion. When he finally reached her, she looked up, her silver eyes glistening with unshed tears. James, you have done more than I ever imagined possible, she whispered. You have given my people hope, and me something I never thought I could feel. He took her hands in his, holding them carefully as though he could keep her close just by touch. Lumina, leaving is the hardest part, he admitted, his voice low and strained. I've never wanted to stay anywhere more, but duty calls. Earth, my people. I have responsibilities there, just as you have responsibilities here. Her lips quivered, and she pressed the crystal against her chest. If only you could stay. If only I could marry you, human. Her words were soft, fragile, yet full of longing. I would give anything to be with you. Freely. Without fear, without rules. But our worlds, they will not allow it. James's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her that distance, politics, and duty could never truly separate hearts, that love this strong could defy the universe itself. But he also knew the truth. They were from different worlds, bound by their own responsibilities. He had no right to pull her from her life, just as he could not abandon his own. He gently cupped her face in his hands. Lumina, I feel the same. More than I have ever felt for anyone. But love is not only about being together. It is about protecting each other, even when it hurts. You have a kingdom to lead, and I have a world to return to. That is our duty. But this connection between us, it will remain, no matter the stars that separate us. Her eyes glistened with tears, and she leaned into his touch, resting her forehead against his chest. For a long moment they stayed like that, two hearts beating in quiet synchronization, a world of words left unspoken. Around them, Arathia's glowing gardens shimmered softly, as if the universe itself mourned the impending separation. I wish, Lumina whispered, that fate could be kinder. That we could choose each other without consequences, that we could just be together. James pressed a kiss gently to her forehead, the same way a parent might comfort a child, yet with the depth of emotion that words could not capture. I wish that too, he said softly. But I promise this, no matter where I am, no matter how far the galaxy stretches between us, I will remember you. And one day, perhaps our paths will cross again. Until then, lead your people with the courage you always have. That is the greatest love I can offer you now, Lumina nodded, her breath shaky, her hands still intertwined with his. Then, go, human. Go back to your world. Carry my hope with you, as I will carry yours. With a final, lingering embrace, James stepped back, his heart heavy but resolute. The twin moons reflected in Lumina's eyes, and for a fleeting instant it felt as if time had stopped. Then, with one last glance, he turned toward the waiting Aurora, the ship that would take him across the stars and back to his own world. Behind him, Lumina watched silently, clutching the glowing crystal to her heart. Though their hands were no longer touching, their bond had not weakened. In their hearts, both human and princess knew something undeniable. Love, courage, and hope could cross even the vastest distances. And one day somehow fate might allow them to be together again. The stars stretched endlessly as Lieutenant James Carter piloted the Aurora back toward human space. His heart was heavy, and the emptiness of the cockpit seemed louder than any battle he had ever faced. Arathia receded behind him, a beautiful planet scarred by war but alive with hope. A hope that he had helped plant, nurtured, and protected. He thought of Princess Lumina constantly. Her silver hair, the glow of her eyes, the strength and vulnerability she carried all at once. He could still feel the warmth of her hands in his, the soft rhythm of her heartbeat when they had stood together in the palace gardens. The galaxy was vast, and countless dangers awaited humanity and Arathia alike, yet in his mind, she shone brighter than any star. Back on Arathia, Lumina stood on her palace balcony, holding the glowing crystal James had given her. The city below was slowly rebuilding. People who had once trembled in fear now moved with courage, inspired by the human who had come into their world and changed it forever. She whispered to the crystal, her voice carried by the gentle night wind. One day, he will return. And when he does, we will stand together without fear or duty between us. James, aboard the Aurora, began sending detailed reports and strategic plans to help Arathia defend itself in the future. Every tactic he documented, every suggestion he made, was not just military advice. It was a lifeline. He had seen firsthand the courage of Lumina's people, the strength of their hearts. Humans had always believed that no challenge was insurmountable when people fought together, and now Arathia's citizens carried that lesson in their veins. Weeks passed. Reports of the Arathians' recovery reached human command. Villages rebuilt, trade routes reopened, and the people, inspired by the actions of James and his squad, were stronger and more united than ever. James read every message, his heart swelling with pride. Humanity had not only defended another world but had shown what courage, ingenuity, and heart could accomplish. Yet even amid the reports of victory and progress, James could not shake the longing in his heart. The connection he had with Lumina was unlike anything he had ever known, an unspoken promise that transcended worlds. The galaxy could separate them, but it could not erase the bond they had formed. It was there in every decision he made, in every life he chose to protect, and in every hope he carried forward. On Arathia, Lumina continued to inspire her people. Her leadership became legendary. She often walked the palace gardens holding the glowing crystal close, remembering the human who had taught her courage, hope, and love. Even across the stars, she whispered, our hearts are one. James looked back toward Arathia from a distance, the planet now small but radiant in his vision. He thought of everything they had shared, the quiet moments in the garden, the fierce battles fought side by side, the whispered words that could never be fully realized. Humanity had made a difference, not only with weapons or strategy, but with something far more powerful, the human spirit. And that spirit had left a mark that would endure beyond any single mission. It was in the bravery of Arathia's citizens, in the resilience of Princess Lumina, and in the knowledge that across impossible distances, two hearts could carry hope, courage, and love. As James plotted the course back to Earth, he smiled softly. The galaxy was vast and dangers would come again, but he knew this. Humanity had a way of rising when it mattered most, of inspiring hope in others, and of leaving legacies that even stars could not erase. Somewhere far across the universe, Princess Lumina looked up at the same sky, her heart full of remembrance and longing. And though they were separated by light years, they were united by something far greater than distance, by courage, by hope, and by the unbreakable bond forged between a human and an alien princess, a bond that would shape the destiny of two worlds for generations to come. In the end, it was not just a story of war or survival. It was a story of humanity at its finest, fearless, compassionate, and endlessly capable of love that could shake the stars themselves.